like I was saying, human consciousness has access up to 12 dimensions, but 13 through 15 are primal source fields. But anyways, the first dimension is like the lesson of the first dimension is stability, and it is existence. Okay, so it's just it's beingness. It is potential. It's just potential. But what exists within that first dimension is minerals that are not in an active transformation process, because once they start to interact with each other and there's movement introduced, that's when the second dimension, that's what the second dimension is. It's that movement. But that first dimension, what it is just the building blocks. It's just this stability. Okay, so the atoms and the minerals are the building blocks of what make up everything. And so thinking about that, the goal and what we were talking about earlier, the goal is to really introduce this quality of stability into our frequency. Like when we can actually get to a place where our frequency is stabilized at a certain higher level, like meaning it's there 90-ish% of the time, right? Maybe we have those moments where whoop, something wonky just happened and it kind of threw me off. But when we can stabilize ourselves at the higher frequency, that means that we're now in that next level. And so a lot of the work that we do, a lot of the healing, clearing, identity work, all of the shit, number one, it's to help us stabilize our frequency at a higher frequency band so that we can align with that version of what we're calling in. And also, like I was saying earlier, increase true self, God source energy. But it is this combination of like attunement to higher self and higher channel and stabilization. Stabilization is like really key. It literally goes back to the building blocks of life. Like that is required for expansion to happen. There has to be a stabilization of the frequency.
Yeah, and I mean this is talking about first chakra energy, right? Which is
also that, yeah.
And it's funny, as you were saying that, I had a just something popped into my head, which was that. So it's interesting as you were explaining the dimensions. I was thinking that I'm wondering if each chakra represents a different dimension, because
yes, yes, I do follow the 15 chakra system and the 15 dimensional.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right. So that is a thing.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because it would make sense, because our third that would mean that the solar plexus is the third dimension, which is the dimension of identity and personal power and stuff like that. And that's where, probably 99%, well, people will fluctuate between the three. They'll have moments of popping up, and I mean, we use our chakras every day, more from like an operational kind of thing, but but extracting the higher potential and making those higher connections. And it's not like you connect to something outside of you per se, because like I've done countless meditations where it says something along the lines of, imagine a beam of light coming down from the heavens and et cetera. So that would infer that this is all outside of you. But if you understand quantum entanglement and the holographic principle, is that all these energies are actually all within you. And depending on what you've got coded in your blueprint will determine how they get activated. So sometimes
the dimensions always activate within us. They're inner activations.
I understand, but it's what's coded in those dimensions in our own personal blueprint, which is what we will experience, because that's what's part of our design, right? So again, without going into like a 3-hour lecture about that sort of thing. So for some of us, or for all of us, actually, when we actually finally get to the place of where we're actually living in that design, it's a multi-layered kind of thing, because it's activated astrologically. So you now have these astrological positions where, because it's because it's the law of correspondence, as above, so below,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it gets to a point. Oh, so I remember what I was going to say now, and this is going back to what you were saying about these these mass activations. Is that
Mm-hmm.
most people don't understand, because let's face it, you will have symptoms of activation your entire life.
Yeah.
But you just won't recognize it as such unless you're either a child or you're just really into this stuff, like right off the bat, right? And so what winds up happening is, oh frick, I just lost it again. Anyway, oh, got it. So there was this concept I learned a long time ago, is like you have two sides of the coin. You have the process, and you have you have what's driving the process. But most people get hung up in the process itself, like the
Mm-hmm.
steps,
Mm-hmm.
like the method, but not understanding that it's the actual. And you mentioned this too, and this has probably been mentioned by just about every freaking person out there, is that it's the energetic state. It's the energy first, because as you just said, the the components of the energy are what are the building blocks of everything else before it crystallizes into a physical form. And then because it's the signaling that's running in our body that will determine the quality of the actions that we take.
Yeah.
So I think once people start to realize this a little bit more, then you'll see a much higher level of sovereignty activated, because just knowing that one thing is like, and I see this all the time, and I see this all the time in the work that I do. I see it in the world. You see it on TV, whatever. It's just prevalent. Is that and this is why they always say you work with the signal, and you work on the dream, because
Mm-hmm.
the dream is really what is driving the signal, and the signal, but at the same time, it's the signal what's driving the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you look at it from a physical stand, and once you understand that, and you get along, it's like the action will then spark more of the energetic capability, and vice versa. So it becomes a very complementary
Mm-hmm.
kind of process, but it always starts with the energy first.
And how
And
do we strengthen and stabilize that signal, right?
yeah,
That's the key. And that I think, even as you're just talking about the process and the energy that drives the process, is reminding me of like ego versus higher self. It's all of these things are kind of the same. They can all be related to each other, because it's like a macrocosm, microcosm situation where everything is kind of fractaling out, but it's like it's actually the same energies at play.
yeah,
It's essentially the energy of expansion and contraction, or attraction and repulsion. Like it's these, yeah.
well, and I mean, yeah, because there's only two energies in the universe. There's electric and magnetic.
Yeah.
The
The
electric
Shiva
being
Shakti.
exactly masculine
Yin
and
the
feminine,
yang.
yin and yang, right?
Right.
And it's working with the it's working with the quality of those two polarities as they work together. Because you can't have if you want a high quality, like I just said, if you want high quality output, you really have to have that embodied. You really have to be rooted in your masculine. And if you want that sense of clarity and that sense of expression, you really have to be rooted in the feminine. And you have to understand that this isn't like, I mean, I can't tell you, hang on a sec. I can't tell you the amount of people out there where, there's, and I'm not knocking this by any stretch, but there's a lot of coaches out there are doing, they're doing embodiment work of, connect with your divine feminine, which is great because it's necessary. But there seems to be an overlap of of the energies with gender.
Mm.
And unfortunately, that it becomes tainted because you're not understanding the real purpose of these, and this is where people get stuck in a certain level of identity that is still very much externally driven by concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so when we can stay rooted in the higher expression of it, because going back to what I was saying there, the why and the how, right? Obviously, you need the how because you have to be able to do it physically, but it has to be infused with the why. Otherwise, you're not going to get the results that you want, because law of attraction is continually responding to our thoughts, but basically our entire the overall signal that we're broadcasting at any given time. And the level of refinement that you get, depending on where you are in your own personal process, will determine. There's lots of other things that affect it too, and some people more than others, but I'm not going to get into all the all those details. But basically, as you as you deepen your understanding of the interplay between these two energies, the level of refinement and the clarity, and this ties into where you're at. These, but it also depends on how you receive information. You just start getting these clarity of these clarity of downloads, which leads me to my next question. Perhaps you could, because this is something I don't actually experience. For me, it's very much about being in a conversation with. So if I'm reading, or if I'm in a conversation, or if I'm listening to an audio, this is what really sparks these types of these ideas, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so how does that work for you? And what do you notice with the people that you work with? Like how they, again, everyone's different, but you hear a lot about people receiving quote unquote downloads.
I mean, for me, I will literally open the Akashic records in the morning and walk around in them and have them open.
Mm-hmm.
I receive most of my downloads from that space.
Okay.
When now that my channel is stronger and I've, cultivated it, I am in communication with my guides a lot more often, in the sense of I can hear them in my thoughts. And the way that I am able to determine that it's a higher divine thought is often, number one, the quality of the thought. Number two, it's something that I have never thought of before. So it's a completely new thought. If it's a repetitive thought, it's likely a program.
Okay.
And there's an energetic quality to it where it feels activating in some way.
Okay.
And like, for example, when I got the download to move to South America, Central America, South America, which was last September, that was a thought I had never had before. And when that thought came in, my whole body felt like jolted a bit. And I was like, oh, that was a download. So for me, that's how it feels. It's like there's an energetic quality to it. The quality of the thought is high, like meaning it's you can tell that it's from a higher place. And it's something I've never thought of before. That's how I know I'm getting a download.
Okay, that makes sense. And like, so do you record them? Do you record yourself? Like, what do you do?
Sometimes, like, I journal. Sometimes I, like, if I'm in an Akashic Records session, I will like record myself voice note.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just I don't forget it. It's just there because it's so profound and important. And I feel like that's kind of how that move thought was. And then the as my consciousness expands, I reshape my reality. Like, that was a download that came in a dream. But that affirmation I've been working with, and my God, have I reshaped my entire reality, since I'm actually in a process right now that's really intense. Because the other part of this is, as we expand into higher levels of consciousness, awareness, life rearranges. They call it a collapse when you say, oh, quantum identity shift. Like, part of that is the quote unquote collapse that happens in the expansion, which I don't like the word collapse because it feels dysregulating to the nervous system, but it's more of a rearrangement of reality. So for me, January of this year, totaled my car. Week ago, my oldest cat passed, right? Now I'm in this process of moving my apartment. This is standard for quantum expansion. And when you understand that that's part of the process, it doesn't feel as scary or overwhelming. And actually, these periods of contraction are indicative that you're moving into a period of massive expansion. So we go through this when we start to align with our higher path. Oftentimes, a lot of the way that we have constructed our current reality cannot come with us. And so, yeah, and that the downloads you get and the nudges that you get toward your higher path, and then there's the physical changes in your reality that have to start to happen in order to make those pathways possible. And that process can be really challenging, and it's almost kind of textbook, like, oh, I'm gonna sell all my stuff and go travel. Like, that's so, like, cliche spiritual girl behavior. But it's just what I'm being directed to do. So
it's funny. I had a similar sentiment of that, but about 3 weeks ago, I was visiting a buddy, and basically all we were doing was going to the gym and watching Olympics. And so we have a storage locker that we've shared for quite a while, and so I still have furniture and enough for a 1-bedroom apartment, and some of it's been there for an extended, like, 4 years. And I just thought, the same thing. It's like, why don't we just freaking get rid of this crap? Because I can only
well, stuff holds you down. It actually anchors you to timelines.
Well, yeah, because it's physical bondage.
Mm-hmm.
So, interesting. And so you're literally just I just think this is amazing.
I'm in a process. I'm expanding, and you're not always. So both energies are present for me right now simultaneously.
What do you mean?
The expansion and the contraction.
Well,
sometimes we go through like, it feels like, oh, I'm in a major contraction, but like, I'm also in a major expansion. Like, I just hired somebody to grow my business, and this is kind of the first time that I feel like I've held both at the same time. And it's a little overwhelming, I can't lie.
Yeah, but that's why, as Einstein coined it, space-time are the same thing, because space and time are literally the same thing. And what that actually means is that they actually, it's like a freaking accordion. And this is why I don't like using, I'll be honest, I don't like using the term timeline, because it suggests that everything is, to me anyway, it doesn't feel like a natural expression. So I just like to use the term possibilities. And so when you're, because we can literally experience 10 or 15 in the span of a couple of minutes, because you can put your attention here, and then you can put your attention
and
there.
you can feel it when you're oscillating too.
Yeah. And like, even if I just sit here and I just kind of let my body take over. So, I feel this, like, I'll give you an example. So I'm just kind of slouched right now, and then I'm just going to surrender completely. And my body sits up on its own. And so this is something that I've just kind of, this is just something that I've kind of played around with for a long time. and so I'm very aware that it's there. Sometimes I use it when I'm doing a class, like a yoga class or something. It's like, okay, so if I'm like, say I'm doing a twist, instead of like bringing it and holding it here, it's like, okay, well, which way does my body actually want to move? So, and what I have found is that if I do the same thing with thought, and I know that I'm totally surrendered, because I'll take a deep breath or a couple of deep breaths, and then I'll just allow my body to move where it needs to go, and then just allow the thinking process to start. And that's how I know I'm connected, because I feel, and everybody can do this. Like it's, and when you realize that people actually have this power. So I haven't, that's about as far with it as I've got in terms of that, but I know that I can then trust the thinking process, because now it's not thinking, because now it's broadcasting, or it's a transmission, whatever you want to call it. And I completely forget, man, I'm just dropping thoughts like crazy today. That's like the fourth, but you dig, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting, the surrendering and then the body moving. And that kind of reminds me of this process of like, we're always naturally orienting toward like what is authentic, true, right, good for us. But then our ego mind gets in the way. And the ego mind would be the slouch. Like we, by trying, by reaching, by striving, actually, it takes us out of that original alignment with that. And so the key often is in that surrender, in that surrender is that connection back to true self energy. And it's just our own protective patterning or our own, fear or whatever that gets us back into that out of alignment sort of, slouchy, essentially.
Yeah. And
Energy.
and unfortunately, like, you hear this term all the time, ego death. And I think it's very disempowering, because it's a process of integration. And so the ego doesn't die. It doesn't go anywhere.
The ego is here to serve us, actually.
Oh yeah.
We need our ego.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It just gets recoded, and it just gets it's
a matter of not letting it lead. So
exactly.
that's all that it is. The ego is good. We need the ego, but we don't want the ego to be in charge. We want to be present with it and aware of it, and we want to listen to it and like hear its concerns, but we never want to let it lead us. We want to lead from our higher self energy.
Well, and here's the thing, is that when we're actually leading and the ego is connected to source, it actually becomes part of our intuitive repertoire. Because there are so many times where I've had an ego concern pop up that actually turned out to be, it wasn't like me just being just like random chatter. It was actually, so a number of years ago, I had started this business idea with another gentleman, and him and I had been at that point had been friends since about 1998. So for quite but we go sometimes years without talking, or how it is. But anyway, for whatever reason, we got reconnected, and we started working on this business idea. And it was an application for real estate. And we got quite a ways into it. We did, God knows, we had the basic framework, we had the design done. And we must have made at least 20 or so pitches for funding. And I just remember one day I was away, and he was actually living on my couch for the first 3 months. That's a whole other story. And I just remember having this conversation with another friend of mine. We were actually away for 10 days on his boat, and I just remember getting these, like, I was being very passive aggressive about this, but it was so loud that, like, I couldn't, you know what I mean? I couldn't ignore it. And
Mm-hmm.
then, subsequently, it was not, it was not aligned. It was very tainted with desperation and
Mm-hmm.
it just very, very misaligned. So I pulled the plug on it. But this was just an example of how, and I think it's, when you are running on a sense of purpose and a sense of mission and a sense of, higher connectedness to, that larger part of us, then, you intuitively listen to these, to these things, because a lot of the time it's just, it is just programming.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, once that intuitive capability, or the source code, or whatever you want to call it, once that is more of a foundational thing, now it's starting to oscillate through these egoic thoughts and experiences, and through these egoic channels that are formed in our brains and the responses in our body. It's, first of all, it starts to completely break them down from being these disruptive and unproductive patterns of thinking and behaviors. But it also starts to code them with this higher density of energy that we're now embodying, and it actually starts to work to our benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And you can notice a difference in the way that it feels, and also the volume in which it's yelling. So it didn't hurt that my buddy was like, dude, what are you doing? And then, yeah. So, but I mean, this is how law of attraction works. It starts off with a thought, and then it goes to another thought. You hold that thought for 17 seconds, and then it holds, and then you run that for 68 seconds, and then you've now activated a completely different stream.
It's a momentum.
Yeah.
But and also, one of the things that my coach actually said to me that really hit was, like, in life, we're always either spiraling up or spiraling down.
Yeah, you never stop.
We're always in an upward spiral or a downward spiral. And, like, recognizing when you are in a downward momentum and, like, correcting it back into an upward momentum is, like, the name of the game. And, like, there are signs, like, I would say it's actually very basic, the signs of being in an upward spiral. And it starts with, like, the body. So, like, what are you eating? Are you moving your body? These are symptoms of an upward spiral, when you're starting to eat healthier, when you're starting to move your body daily, when you're meditating daily. Like, it really starts there. That's how you get the momentum. It's actually very physical body oriented. It's very
well, of course,
chakra oriented. That's where the spiral starts.
Because your body is an extension of I mean, your body. Okay, so historically, and I'm talking about historically, it started way back in, like the story of Adam and Eve, where instead of, because there was a lot of body shame that came with, like, oh, I've got this, the Adam's like, well, I got this thing, and Eve was like, well, I got these two things, and there's a lot of body shaming, and so they disidentified from the body, and instead of being the body, they have a body. So it becomes these two very different things, and this just went right through history up until the modern day. In Christianity, they practiced, there was all these practices to try and escape the body. It was called modification of the flesh. Even the Buddha practiced body escape stuff, prior to him becoming the Buddha. And so, and this is a foundational problem, because we think that, there's I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. You are not your mind. You are not your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bullshit. And the reason why I say that is because the body isn't, it's like when you go skiing, right? The way I was taught was that think of the skis as an extension of your foot. So when you think of it as one solid unit, you're able to get that, it's a lot easier to embody that's the sensation of the skis turning and that flow, which is exactly what we're learning to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the same token, you can't be in flow in your body if you feel like the body is just like this mechanical whatever. So there's this massive disconnect. And I think once people start to understand that, because the body is just made up of energy as well, it's just in a denser form than, say, air or water or whatever have you. But even still, it's 70% water anyway. But that's a whole other conversation. So there's this whole thing where we're not as understanding that, because the whole this comes down to the whole point of this whole process, which is allowing source energy to realize itself, because we are all source, and it realizes it through us having our own unique individual human experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we learn to embrace the fact that our body is not only an integral part of the process, because that's where the experience actually happens, but also understanding that it is, in a sense, it is part of who we are, because it is literally part of us. It's not foundationally who we are as this ever-present awareness, but it's very much a necessity of the process and not a separate, and it's not just like a,
our body is in
it's
this
not an
awakening
accessory
process with us. We have to take our body with us. That's why nervous system work is so important, because we can spiritually expand, and then our body has to catch up to that expansion, or else it will actually hold us back if we're not in alignment with ourself and with the signals and the physiological signs of the body. Like the body, like we can move forward to a certain extent in our path, but if we haven't done the like actual integration of like breathing that expansion into ourselves, then our nervous system will run these patterns that like pull us back into, like, for example, the nervous system doesn't speak. So the subconscious mind speaks in pictures, sounds, and feelings, but the nervous system actually speaks physiologically through the body somatically. So like symptoms like all of a sudden getting tired, or needing to take a break, or pulling back, not answering phone calls, not answering messages, like these types of behaviors are actually all nervous system related. And the nervous system, and this is happening, by the way, on a level that's not conscious. So this is how the nervous system can actually hold us back. We can't progress to we can't get there without bringing the body. So like we actually have to learn how to be more embodied in order, unless you're just wanting to meditate under a tree and you don't have any physical things to do, like that's different, because then you're just working with the quality of consciousness. But for where we are at as a collective right now, we have missions and we have things that we need to accomplish on this plane, actual physical things. And in order for us to do that, we absolutely have to integrate our nervous system capacity into that equation.
No, 100%. Like there's no, and actually when I wouldn't say, I mean, for me at this point now, I wouldn't say it's necessarily quote unquote holding us back. It's signaling that the body needs, this happens to me. It happens all the time. And lately it's been happening a ton. Because I've had some pretty substantial, I moved in the last 4 weeks, and, just a lot of changes in that regard. But I think it's more of a, it's more of a recalibration process, because when you start to feel things like heat and just that that sense of, you know,
Mhm.
you just feel kind of like you start to feel antsy and or kind of overwhelmed. That's, you know, that's the body's way of starting the process of integration, because and the reason why it feels uncomfortable is that it's foreign, and so this is a very specific type of distinction that a lot of people miss, is that, you know, it's always thought of as resistance, and in a way it is, because you've hit your edge, and
Mhm.
now the body has to go through this process of expanding and creating space. um, so and if there is no space, then it has to physically create space, and
Mhm.
that's what gets uncomfortable, because it's not really like you're um, it's how do I put this? This is the transmutation process, because obviously you can't get rid of energy. Like
Right.
it just doesn't happen. So it's this case of, you know, getting this, for lack of a better term, the stagnant energy, to get it moving,
Mhm.
and to get it moving to a point where it starts to transmute. And that's where this whole process of allowing and movement and meditation and all this kind of stuff, because what that is basically saying is that we are giving our body permission
Yeah.
to now start to hold these higher energies that were,
Yeah.
because those energies are there, because
That's
they're
actually, so that I didn't mention this before, but before all of the Akashic Records work that I started doing, I was sitting with ayahuasca a lot, and I was also sitting with acacia, and I was also moving a lot of energy from my body somatically,
mm,
like pushing energy out of my body, um, like tabletop position, pushing into my hands and like screaming, and like screaming into a pillow, and like really literally there was so much energy that I had to clear from my physical body to even create space for more of that higher self energy to come in. But yeah, I was doing a lot of that work in plant medicine ceremonies too,
mm,
energetic clearing work and things like this.
mm,
Acacia is a tea that was very pop. It's Egyptian, and it's like a priestess medicine. Um, we would drink it in temples. It's 5-MeO DMT, but it's different from ayahuasca in the sense of you can titrate in and out of it. So when you drink the medicine, you close your eyes and you can go really deep, but when you open your eyes, you're sober again. So it's really
mm,
regulating for the nervous system, because you can go into a trip, or you can also come out just as easily. And it's
mm,
really the only medicine I've ever worked with in that way. And so, and it's a daytime thing, and we sing, but yeah, the plant medicine work, surprised I didn't mention it sooner, but that was a huge part of like clearing space for the activation and the expansion as well.
mm. And you've also tried that thing you did recently, the Cambo.
Oh yeah. So when I opened my container for Quantum Akashic Practitioner, I felt as it's really important to me to be embodied and to be in integrity in all of the work that I do. And I just felt like I'm about to go on the 6.5 month journey with these students, and I want to be the cleanest, clearest, strongest channel that I can be. And so I felt that combo at that point in time was necessary for me to kind of cleanse myself in order to prepare myself for this work. And I had not sat with combo before. I've done all these other plant medicines, but not combo. Combo doesn't come from a plant though; it comes from a frog. Um, but anyway, combo was, I had a lot of fear around it for a long time, and then finally I decided I was ready for it. And actually I got a download that that's actually what readiness is. Readiness itself is the quality of enough fear being dissipated so that you can finally say yes. Like the fear has been cleared in the system, and like now you're ready.
Mm,
Um, but so I sat with combo. It was very intense. I was throwing up the entire time. My face swole like so much I couldn't even open my eyes. And my face was actually swollen for like 3 days. But combo traditionally has been used in indigenous cultures to also cleanse you from any negative entities or negative spirits. So it's like an exorcism. And so it kind of clears out any, dark energies hanging around or whatever. And I did feel a massive shift and a massive energetic opening from the work. And yeah, I'm glad that I did it. And I would sit again in some time. But I think combo, it's not psychedelic at all. It's literally just a cleanse, and you just pretty much throw up the entire time for 20 minutes.
Oh.
It's not pleasant at all.
Oh,
It
it's only
burns, stings,
okay.
they put it on your back, and then you just, I mean, everyone's different, but for me, it was just throwing up the whole time. So
yeah, that sounds like fun.
yeah.
Okay. So we are, I know you've got, we've just got a few minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any final thoughts or observations or anything that come to mind that you would like to share or leave us with?
I guess what's coming to mind is sort of just like a summarization of maybe what the components of like activating, embodying higher self energy. And basically through our conversation, the body, somatic work, nervous system regulation, nervous system capacity expansion, really important. Channel development, right? Channel development for getting clarity around your ideas, what you're creating, connecting in with your purpose is also kind of nudged in there before. And yeah, and then being aware of the process that as you do, and also identity work, as you do connect into these, I call them timelines, you call them possibilities, that higher possibilities, higher timelines. There is a process that you need to make space for those things to arrive. And so there will be these periods of contraction in your expansion, and to just have the tools and the awareness to understand when those processes are happening, and being able to regulate your nervous system so that you can essentially emit a strong, coherent, stabilized signal. I mean, that is it in a nutshell.
That pretty much sums it up in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I absolutely love what you're doing, and the fact that it's going the way that it is, for me, is even more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you've been, we've talked before at length about some more personal aspects, and actually we've had a lot of similar experiences, and I think that's very much, there is a pattern. It's a general pattern of those who are invoking this journey for this reason, which is, it's the front-loaded karma, it's the crazy, the not normal life experience, whether it's a dysfunctional household, whether it's just crazy relationships.
Oh my gosh, we didn't even touch on that.
Whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think that could be good for another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to acknowledge you for being brave enough to step into this, because I mean, let's face it, if it's something like, when did you actually start actually physically doing the business side of this?
So this iteration was 2023 when I really started recommitting myself to this work. But I originally started doing spiritual healing work in 2017, and I did it for 3 years ish. And I ran a psychic development mentorship actually as my first group program back in 2018 or something like this, 2019.
Oh wow! Oh, so this is nothing new.
But it was different. Like I didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle, hence why now is the time it's taking off. But I had the vision to an extent back then. I just didn't have the full vision, and I wasn't personally matured or evolved enough to hold the container of what it was that I was ultimately meant to create. And so I basically went through my own initiation process again, like following in 2020 through like 2023. I was in a intense relationship initiation situation, multiple actually back to back. And so yeah, and anyway, but so I started then, and then I got kind of sidetracked for a couple of years, and then I recommitted. And
well, it kind of happens, and you know, I've gone through loops too, where you know, I had some good years in real estate, and then I had some not so good years, and then I had a couple more good years, and then yeah, so okay, this has been absolutely fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to stop the recording.